We're here for Nantucket Pulse programming made possible by Nantucket Cottage Hospital's Community Health Initiative. This broadcast covers the impact of the coronavirus on the island and provides urgent updates. This broadcast will be posted to nctv18.org, where you can read this in multiple languages, and links that we mention in the broadcast will be in place there. Tonight, we will place a telephone call to two special guests to answer questions from our viewers via the chat feature on the YouTube live stream version of this episode. Around 5:50 p.m., we will talk to Noah Carberg, Nantucket Assistant Airport Manager and Public Information Officer. At around 6 p.m., we will talk to Bob Davis, Steamship Authority's General Manager. HyLine Cruises was not available for tonight's interview, but we will read to you Philip Scudders, the Vice President of HyLine Cruises. Will read to you his response to our questions. Please note that we will air pre-taped interviews with both gentlemen before the Q&A session to speak to commonly voiced concerns from the community. Please hold your questions until I announce that the public Q&A segment is turned on with NCTV YouTube channel. Otherwise, your questions might get lost in the chat. Unfortunately, we will not be able to answer every question. At the end of tonight's broadcast, I will personally answer questions from this chat. As efforts to control the spread of coronavirus intensify, we have seen a dramatic disruption to our community. As we begin tonight, I want to offer a friendly reminder about safe cleaning practices. Given the outbreak, the Center for Disease Control recommends routine cleaning frequently of every touched surface. If you use bleach to disinfect, please wear gloves and make sure the room has proper ventilation. As many of us heard growing up, never mix household bleach with ammonia or any other cleaner. It creates dangerous, toxic fumes. Here are some easy to remember bleach dilution measurements. To disinfect surfaces that come in close contact with sensitive items like food or babies, dilute a half teaspoon of bleach in a quart of water. To clean all other surfaces, dilute 3 tablespoons of bleach in a gallon of water to make a strength of 5.25 to 6.25%. To clean porous surfaces, use cleaners that are EPA approved for porous surfaces and for emerging viral pathogens. Also, please do not flush anything down the toilet except toilet paper. Flushing wipes, sanitary pads, or substitutes for toilet paper will clog your pipes. In fact, we have had a few sewer backups before within the community, and the smell still haunts me today. Now, we'll run through a breakdown of recent changes around the island. This week, the town of Nantucket officially declared a state of emergency. According to the town, this decision enables the town through the town manager to take immediate steps to provide for the safety and general welfare of the people of Nantucket. To coordinate efficient responses, the town has put together an incident response team. The town is working to set up remote access for members of key community meetings. Nantucket Community Television will provide a public video to those meetings on the Nantucket Government TV YouTube channel. A plan is expected to be announced soon. On Saturday, April 4th, the town meeting was postponed. For the Saturday, April 4th town meeting, we've postponed it to May 2nd. The landfill is still open at its regular hours, but the Take It or Leave It is closed. Marine Home Center is closing its store effective at 5 p.m. Monday, March 23rd through Monday, April 6th. All deliveries have been suspended, and during the closure, some staff will be available at the phone number of 508-228-0900. They will take orders for pickup outside of the Marine Home Center. The Nantucket Food Pantry will be closed through at least March 30th for a deep cleaning. Deliveries to homebound clients will continue. If you would like to donate, please visit assistnantucket.org. The Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands are operating under normal business hours and are maintaining their Meals on Wheels delivery to homebound seniors. They have received many calls from volunteers and want to thank the community for its generosity. You can register to be a volunteer or donate by visiting their website at www.escci.org and by clicking the How You Can Help Us tab. The FDA reports that there are no nationwide shortages of food. Some items might be temporarily depleted at the Stop and Shop, but the store will soon replenish them. Restaurants have closed their dining-in options. This could be a great time to enjoy takeout or delivery from your favorite island restaurants. Many offer delivery themselves, and food delivery services like Ack Eats at ackeats.com expand the list of available restaurants. You can also visit Man About Town at manabouttown.com to see a full list of participating restaurants. The FDA reports that there are currently no evidence of food or food packaging being associated with transmission of COVID-19. Like other viruses, it's possible that the virus that causes COVID-19 can survive on surfaces or objects. For that reason, it is critical to follow the 4 key steps of food safety: clean, separate, cook, and chill. Unlike foodborne gastrointestinal viruses, SARS-CoV-19, which causes COVID-19, is a virus that causes respiratory illness and not gastrointestinal illness. Foodborne exposure to this virus is not known to be a route of transmission. And this just in, the hospital has updated its policy about who should come to the hospital and to which entrance. They released the following statement. Nantucket Cottage Hospital is requesting that island residents do not come to the hospital unless they need emergency care that would require them to be admitted or are an expecting mother in labor. As this situation evolves, we will need to focus all our resources on those who need immediate care. We are also advising anyone traveling to the island or anyone who has come here to shelter from other cities or towns that Nantucket has limited medical resources and a surge of cases could quickly overwhelm our hospital. If you have a choice to be on Nantucket or not, we are requesting that you make the decision to stay off the island to avoid a potentially dire scenario for our community and our hospital. We need everyone on Nantucket to stay home now. Residents should follow every precaution with regards to social distancing, hygiene, hand washing, and disinfecting much-used surfaces. The drive-through evaluation site at the main entrance of the Cottage Hospital will continue to operate, and island residents who are feeling symptoms of respiratory illness should utilize this service. Please do not come to the drive-through if you are well and do not have symptoms. It is not a voluntary testing site. The drive-through will now be open on Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. The hospital has started to experience a shortage in some of their medical protective equipment. They issued the following statement earlier today. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a major impact on Nantucket Cottage Hospital's supply of personal protective equipment, or PPE, that our medical providers need to continue to care for patients. Hospitals across the country are facing shortages, and we are concerned that our limited supply can soon be exhausted as this situation continues to evolve. Nantucket Cottage Hospital is appealing to the community for donations of N95 respirator masks, regular ear loop masks, medical gloves, and gowns. We are requesting from our local contractors, painters, dentist office, beauty salons, and any other businesses or individuals who may have a supply that they can donate. These items are critical to protect our healthcare workers and patients and will help us prevent the spread of any potential infections in our community. If you are able to donate any items, please drop them off at the loading dock at Nantucket Cottage Hospital off of Vesper Lane between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m., 7 days a week. Nantucket Community Television has reached out to an expert in 3D printing technology about using devices like the Athenaeum's 3D printer to manufacture face masks for the hospital. The expert said it is possible to create wearable items like bathing suits because the printer's accuracy enable it to follow the contours of the body. However, the product is not flexible. Masks need to be flexible to create an airtight seal. Please donate personal protective equipment you have to spare. In fact, our technical director is going to donate some of the hundreds of pairs of gloves his overzealous friends sent to him. To support some of the organizations we depend on most here, the Community Foundation has just established an economic relief fund. They released the following statement today. The Nantucket Fund for Emergency Relief, the Foundation's Board of Trustees, have donated $100,000 from the Nantucket Fund to launch this initiative. In addition, late Thursday evening, the Foundation received the pledge for a generous matching grant of $250,000 from Remain Nantucket. The Nantucket Fund for Emergency Relief will be able to act quickly to address immediate needs stemming from the COVID-19 crisis. Grants from this fund will focus on providing operational assistance to our island's human service providers who are dealing with needs most critical as a result of this health and economic crisis. These grants will help to keep critical care moving and supplement existing support systems. Nonprofits can contact Jean Miller or Carlisle Jensen at the Community Foundation for information on the streamlined application process. Please make a generous donation to this critical funding effort at the URL that should appear at the bottom of your screen. This URL and all the resources we mentioned tonight will be linked on each episode's transcripts on nctv18.org as a recap of this broadcast and to be of service to the community. Effective today, the Nantucket Board of Health has discontinued all services offered to the public which cannot be provided at a distance of at least 6 feet away. This includes, but is not limited to, hairdressers and barbers, nail salons, massage services, body art, body work, fitness centers, and houses of worship. This does not include child care facilities granted an exemption by the Department of Early Childhood Education and Care, nor does it include services provided by licensed allied healthcare providers. Additionally, they are encouraging all retail establishments that do not sell essential commodities such as food, medicine, or cleaning supplies to consider voluntarily closing until April 6th. Those that do remain open should ensure customers maintain social distancing. The Steamship Authority has delayed the return of its high-speed I&O service by 3 weeks to April 24th. The special sale of the discounted Fast Ferry booklet, which does not expire, will continue from March 23rd through April 5th. Please buy online instead of in person. All concession sales on steamship boats have been suspended. The steamship released the following statement. It is important to us at the Steamship Authority that we make it clear what steps we are taking on our number one priority, on ensuring the safety of our passengers and our crew. Our crews already do an outstanding job of cleaning our vessel interiors in between trips, but we have instructed them, along with our bus, parking lot, and terminal employees, to specifically disinfect all hand railings, tabletops, door handles, seats, faucets, and toilets, both in between trips and during trips as needed. We are well stocked with cleaning supplies and have ordered extra hand sanitizers and other supplies for our customers to use while traveling with us. We also instructed our employees to wash their hands frequently and use hand sanitizer. Most importantly, we have told them that under no circumstances should they be coming to work while they are sick, both for their safety as well as the safety of the crew. If any employee comes to work sick, they will be sent home, period. Even if it means having to cancel a scheduled trip, the risk is too great to take. We are also making contingency plans to maintain service in the event that a significant number of our employees fall ill, but we have every confidence that we will continue to provide essential services to the islands throughout this time. We are working closely with local, state, and federal authorities to stay up to date on this quickly changing situation. So far, there have been no specific changes recommended for public transit agencies other than the best practices of instructing our employees to wash their hands, keep up a strict cleaning schedule, and to stay home if they're sick. As guidance changes, we will act appropriately to keep everyone safe. We have made no changes to our schedules or operations at this time. We will operate until we are ordered not to do so or until we are unable to do so. All flights at the airport are running according to schedule. There are no current plans to reduce the amount of frequency of flights. The fixed base operator building at the airport has been closed, though. The HyLine has not canceled any boats. Rather, they have reduced the amount of passengers allowed on their boats in order to encourage social distancing. Pre-existing reservations are not affected. This means the boat will sell out more quickly. They recommend avoiding travel during their busiest times, which are listed on their website. To find them, go to HyLineCruises.com and click on the link called "We are closely monitoring the evolving situation of COVID-19 in our area." And finally, let's talk about the wonderful services local organizations are creatively offering to all of us while hunkering down. The Nantucket Athenaeum, although its doors are closed until at least April 1st, and the Dreamland has suspended film screenings, and the Nantucket Community Music Center is closed for all public operations until it deems safe to reopen by state and local officials. These nonprofits continue to offer great ways to educate, entertain, and inspire us by offering free ebooks, online classes, virtual concerts, movies, and music. Please visit nctv18.org for a complete list of these resources provided by our local nonprofits. Now that's resourceful thinking from our Little Islands organizations, and more to come on this in our next show. Now let's talk about the main focus of tonight's episode, transportation. There's concern in our community about how the ferries and flights will and should work given this new environment. We have been listening, and yesterday I spoke to Noah Carberg, Nantucket Assistant Airport Manager and Public Information Officer, about some of the thoughts circulating the island. He will join us after this taped segment plays for a live Q&A. What is the average passenger traffic for this time of year? How much more or less traffic are you seeing now compared to the average?
Okay, so the short answer is that it's down on both the private and the commercial side.
Are you collecting information from where the travelers are coming from? Would you know if somebody is coming from a viral hotspot? And if so, are you seeing any patterns?
So what we do know is just from our commercial airline schedules. We have flights that are coming from Hyannis, Boston, Martha's Vineyard, JFK. That's posted. We know where the aircraft is coming and going from. That doesn't necessarily point to anything for passenger origin.
That's a good point. Point of origin, but not necessarily traveler information.
Correct.
Are there any new protocols being implemented by the airport to reduce the likelihood of the spread of the virus?
So we already had an excellent custodial staff. We've closed a couple non-essential buildings, and we've redevoted that staff to cleaning surfaces that are touched by the public and cleaning restrooms and ensuring those restrooms have, filled hand soap containers. We don't have a lot of passenger traffic, but we've also looked at other things we can do. All the air filters in our HVAC system in the terminal. They're not due for a changing, but we're going through and we're changing them all anyway. We're not handling private luggage for the time being, and we're not providing the private shuttle service from the ramp to our passenger lounge that we're used to doing. Just a couple measures to help protect potential employees.
That's great. Those are great measures. Since different carriers use the airport, who has the authority to enforce carriers to abide by new protocols? And who could decide for multiple carriers to provide travelers with a fever or reduce the capacity of flights?
Okay, so I think what a lot of people may not intuitively understand, and what we'd like to say about that, is aviation generally operates under a system of heavy federal preemption. It's interstate commerce, and the FAA and the US government has maintained exclusive influence over air travel, airline operations, and local airports. So the FAA would control where aircraft could or couldn't come from, how many passengers could be on them, how frequently they could come. FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, the Transportation Security Administration, they own the screening process, how passengers traveling on secure flights would go through screening. And this is driver's license screening, ensuring they have a boarding pass. This isn't related to taking temperatures or other biological characteristics. What we call FIS, or Federal Inspection Services, which consists of Customs and Border Patrol and a couple other federal agencies, they own the screening process for international passengers arriving into the United States. We don't have international arrivals, so we don't have Federal Inspection Services screenings. But that's where in aviation the power would lie to do immigration checks, custom checks, and medically qualified checks.
If it were decided that the airport would only receive year-round resident travelers, who would make that decision and how would that be enforced?
So we don't really have a basis. That's never been something that's been brought forward in the federal sort of preemptive environment. Airports we're part of a federal system. We accept the FAA and USDOT statements that will be open to anyone regardless of anything from gender identity to real or perceived disability, ethnic origin, marital status. That's never been a situation we've been tasked with before. Ultimately, it's without precedent. I think that I don't know how we would be able to even approach determining what represents an islander, why an islander would be qualified based on an address or a duration of events, driver's license. If there would be any kind of shutdown, and I am just purely speculating, that would have to be something that's instituted by presidential executive order or a agency order to the airport.
That makes sense. It is actually a federal port, so that makes a lot of sense. Are there fewer workers on duty now than would be normally on this time of year?
Yes, our traffic volume has been reduced as of late. We maintain, prior to sending non-essential staff home, Ross Rectrix ceased operations. But with fewer people around, even before town office closures, there's fewer work and fewer amounts of follow-up to do in the terminal and public spaces.
Are there current plans to restrict passengers based on their residency?
No, there are no current plans to make any kind of operational restrictions except for those which might be necessitated by safety or reduced staffing. At most, the most severe we would look at is if we were to assist in a mutual aid situation, we would reduce the hours that some airfield services are available, like aircraft fueling, for example.
Okay, we're back. And I have Noah Carberg on the phone here to answer our questions. And also, if you don't have the chat feature on your YouTube channel right now, I would suggest hitting the refresh button so that chat feature comes in. Now, as of right now, Noah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Roberto. Thank you. How are you?
Not bad. Not bad. We're holding up as much as we can. So as of right now, today is kind of a foggy and gross day. So we'll start with a nice light question. How is the fog and everything, the weather today, treating the airport?
It's probably a non-issue right now, Roberto. We've been pretty slow. When I touched base with our operations staff this morning, they were very, very light on traffic, which was a good break for us. We were able to attend to some business items we've been behind on and continue with our contingency planning.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. So a question that's been bugging a lot of us on the island is, how is this affecting local businesses, especially the small businesses that are tenants and operate out of the airport? How are they dealing with things like this?
I don't know. Hopefully as well as they can. I know it's going to be a huge impact. We have over 200, I believe at last count, different leaseholders for different businesses on the airport. These are landscape companies who rent land for their operation, tenants within the terminal, such as Crosswind, people who provide aviation services, such as plane cleaning and concierge services. And I think this is going to have a huge short and long-term impact on them. So on that front, we're trying to keep our tenants updated through our email list as we receive information on small business loan programs put on by the state, and it's something we're going to be watching very carefully.
Absolutely. And as far as, when you issued a statement a while ago about how you've changed cleaning and how the cleaning is being and disinfecting is working there. But how is the PPE situation now that we hear that there might be a shortage? Is your staff taking care of PPE? What do you think of the hospital's statement about getting PPE to them?
Well, we fully support the hospital. We followed the news. We know what they're up against. We went through and we used the lack of fog or the foggy weather to go through and inventory all of our medical supplies, and we sent a shipment of everything we could over to the hospital. It has some operational effects. We've had to discontinue offering lab cart service that requires PPE, and we're not going to expose our staff to that, and we're going to ration our now limited extent as far as we can. We found and distributed good YouTube videos for our custodial staff on how to lengthen the life of their gloves and other PPE as well. So I think we're in a fine position. We'll continue to look and dig, but at this point, we're looking at the hospital and hoping that what we've given them could be a help.
That's great. Thank you for helping our community as much as you can. Really, it looks like there's not a lot of questions coming in specifically for you here on the YouTube channel. So I think one of the things that we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut you loose. Thank you so much, Noah.
You bet, Roberto. We're here and we're available.
Thank you very much. We're always here to connect with you. I really appreciate it.
You bet. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye. We want to thank Noah Carberg very much for his time. And yesterday, we also spoke with Bob Davis, the Steamship Authority General Manager. I asked him many of the same concerns that I brought up to Mr. Carberg. We would now play that recording of that interview. After this taped segment, Mr. Davis will join us on the phone for a live Q&A as well. What is the average passenger traffic for this time of year? And so, are you seeing more or less traffic in compared to other years?
Okay, so typically this time of year, we carry about 460 passengers combined on average daily on the Nantucket run. For the first 14 days of March, traffic numbers are looking like it's around 405 passengers on average per day.
As people are encouraged to stay home, have you seen an increase in freight traffic compared to the average time of the year?
During March so far, on the Nantucket run, we have seen an increase of about 3% in our larger trucks that we carry, the over 20-foot trucks.
And are you collecting any information about from where these travelers are coming from? Will you know if somebody comes from what's considered a hot spot of the virus activity? And if you do collect this information, are you seeing any specific patterns?
So for our walk-on passengers, we do not collect any data regarding their origin. For their vehicles, as we do have their vehicle information, we do have that data. And thus far, we haven't seen any real significant increase in out-of-state vehicles.
That's good to know. Have any new protocols been implemented by the steamship to reduce the likelihood of the spread of this virus? How is social distancing being enforced on the boats?
So early on, we identified, we relied on the Mass Department of Public Health and the CDC for guidance regarding best practices. And we've been distributing that to our vessels and our crews, and we've posted that on board the vessels for our patrons as well. Most recently, the social distancing on the Nantucket run, where we were carrying, say, 400 passengers on average in a day. We haven't had any instances in the last 4 to 5 days of any passenger count being in excess of 75 passengers. And as many islanders would know, 75 passengers on the Eagle is a very low number of passengers.
Yeah, it's very low indeed. If it were decided that the ferries would only transport year-round residents, who could make that decision and how would it be enforced?
So for our walk-on passengers, we do not collect any data regarding their origin. For the vehicles, as we do have their vehicle information, we do have that data. And thus far, we haven't seen any real significant increase in out-of-state vehicles. At this time, we'd be going into uncharted waters. That we're relying on that it would be a presidential order or an order by the governor to restrict travel. And how it would be enforced, we'd have to have those discussions with the proper authorities at that time.
And are fewer workers on duty now than would be at normal this time of year?
No, at this point we have a normal contingent of employees. We haven't laid anyone off.
That's good to hear that you're fully staffed. Thank you. If there is a shelter-in-place order issued, how will that affect necessary freight deliveries to the island? And how about the fuel deliveries as well?
So in the event that that was to occur, we'd be working with the officials up in Boston to ensure that we're able to transport the necessities of life, including food, fuel, and medicines. And all those particulars would have to be worked out at that time. But we're well aware, and we've been making sure that our colleagues up at in Boston have taken into consideration our unique status as the transportation lifeline to the islands.
Of course, it is an unprecedented time for all of us. I really appreciate the work that you're doing for us, and I'm sure the islanders do as well. Are there any current plans to restrict access to the ferries to Nantucket?
At this time, there are no plans to restrict access to the ferries for the public. That would require an executive order by the president or the governor.
And lastly, what message would you have for travelers thinking of coming over to Nantucket?
We would ask that if you do feel sick or are sick, that you would not travel with us. If you are traveling with us, we would ask that you maintain social distancing, take advantage of the space that are on the vessel, avail yourself of the hand sanitizers and restrooms on board to maintain a healthy hygiene. And if you're traveling with a vehicle, you take this opportunity to remain in the vehicle if you so choose.
Excellent. That's great news. Also, I guess the big takeaway is if you're feeling sick, stay home.
That's correct. We understand that the medical resources that are on the island could be strains under this situation. So we also feel that if people are sick, that they shouldn't be heading to the island.
Okay, and we're back. So thank you for Bob Davis for doing that interview yesterday, and I really appreciate it. We actually have Bob on the phone right now. Bob, how are you doing today?
Thanks for having me, and it's been a busy couple days here.
I can imagine. So it's been very busy here too. So we're just going to go ahead and dive into some of the questions that are coming up. So one of the big questions that are on everyone's mind is, what message do you have for the travelers of coming to Nantucket?
Well, in terms of the travelers, we're reminding them to follow best practices, wash your hands, hand sanitize. More importantly, to maintain a social distance on our vessels. That should be simple enough to be able to do. If someone is traveling with a vehicle, we're asking them to remain in the vehicle, if at all possible, to cut down on some of the interaction between customers.
Excellent.
But another part of this is that we need to want to assure the residents on the island that we'll continue to do what we need to do to get the essentials of life over to the island in terms of the food, the medicines, and the fuel that the island needs.
Well, I truly appreciate the hard work that you're doing. We really do. Is there, as of right now, are there any scheduled modifications in the service? Do you expect any changes in the coming weeks?
So in response to, we've been watching our traffic over the last few weeks. We have seen a sizable drop in passenger traffic the last few days, 2 or 3 days. And as a result, we are going to be making some schedule modifications for the Nantucket route starting on Sunday. We will not be running the freight boat. The Gayhead will only be running on Monday through Thursday schedule. That boat is going to be carrying hazardous on the first 2 trips of the day, so it's not available for passengers. The last trip of the day for that vessel will only be running if need be, but it would only be for vehicles that are going with it and the passengers that are associated with that. Otherwise, the Eagle will remain berthed on the island and will run its regularly scheduled trips for the time being.
Okay, so we can expect some changes to the schedule. And are these being announced on the website as well?
Yes, so we're getting that onto our website. We're posting on our social media, and we're going to be distributing it to the local media for them to place out there as well.
Excellent. Okay, so we can go to that website and look at the information as it comes out. Then a question from one of our YouTube video viewers. What is the status of the boatyards and the workers? How are they doing in all of this?
Okay, so from boatyards, I assume they're referring to the terminals, or I'll start with that to say that the terminals, it's a stressful time for our workers as it is for everyone else. We still have people understand that we have work to do and we need to accomplish that. So been very appreciative of all the hard work that our employees have been doing, both at the terminals and on the vessels. And they continue to show up. Call-ins have been minimal, and we're grateful for that.
Okay. Then one other question that just came in on YouTube is, if the governor orders a stay at home or a shelter in place, would passengers be prohibited from using the Steamship Authority coming to or from the island or on the Eagle?
So we'd really be getting into some unique circumstances if that was to happen. We've never had that situation, and none of us have gone through that. The message that as we continue to talk with counterparts up in Boston about the unique situation that the Steamship Authority is in terms of a transportation agency in the Commonwealth. For instance, the T can shut down, but people still have a means to be able to get around. In this case, if we were to shut down, there would be no supplies going to the island. So we keep making them well aware of that. We would anticipate that it would only be essential travel only, so that would be for food products, for medicines, for fuel, and if there's any medical personnel that need to go back and forth, we would anticipate that would be the case. But it would only be if there was any sort of designation of essential personnel.
Okay. Well, that's great information. We certainly are taking it one step at a time, especially with the governor's orders.
And we also realize that part of that may be that there's people that live on the islands that do have to come off for medical treatments because of conditions that they're in. So we'll also make sure that that portion of our business is mentioned if there is any consideration for a shutdown.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that, especially having a family member that has to go to and from the island for cancer treatment. So I really appreciate what you're doing. And as of right now, there isn't another question for the Steamship Authority. So I think I will release Bob. We really appreciate you very much. We really appreciate the hard work that the steamship is doing. The boats are our lifeline to the island and the mainland, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Bob.
Well, thank you, and everyone stay safe.
Likewise. Stay safe. Take care.
Okay.
Okay, so we want to thank Bob Davis for being on the phone with us. We really appreciate all the hard work that the Steamship Authority and the HyLine is doing, and the airport. Those are our main ways to get into the island, to and from the island, and we really appreciate the work. Along those lines, We contacted the HyLine with the same questions that we asked the steamship and the airport, and they've responded with an official statement that answered our questions from Philip Scudder, the vice president of HyLine Cruises. And this is what he says. Through the first 18 days of March in 2019, our average daily traffic was approximately 1,250 people per day. Traffic for the last 3 days has averaged less than 730 per day. We do not collect personal information from our passengers when they are purchasing tickets. I would assume it's possible to get some information from those who make a reservation online because payment must be made with a credit card when they are reserving. We also have analytics indicating where people are when they access our website, but it does not follow them through the reservation process, which is a third-party software. On Tuesday, March 17th, it was requested of us through the town's selectman office that we make adjustments to our passenger capacity in accordance with guidelines issued by the CDC. So on Wednesday, March 18th, we sent out the following email and social media post. Starting Thursday, March 19th, we are reducing passenger capacities on our Nantucket ferries to allow for the opportunity for appropriate social distancing. In addition, we ask for your cooperation in social distancing on board the vessel and in queuing for boarding. Distancing will be left to the individual travelers. At the reduced capacities, they have an opportunity to seat themselves at appropriate distances if they so choose. If a mother and her child or any family members or friends are comfortable sitting together, they can sit together. On the ferries, we are required by the United States Coast Guard regulations to operate with a specific minimum number of staff. We adhere to all regulations in place for the operation of motor vessels carrying passengers for hire. Our parking, dock, and ticket office staff are being monitored and adjusted as demand requires. Beyond stepped-up sanitizing and reminders of best practices, there have been no other protocols implemented. Our message is consistent to all our passengers regardless of what category you place them in. We ask that they use best practices when traveling, and do not travel if you have any flu-like symptoms. If you are traveling for leisure, please postpone it to another time. If you must travel, please practice safe social distancing wherever possible. For weeks and months ahead, we are discussing and reevaluating the time and message in our advertising and promotion of all our services. Also, I asked the HyLine if it were decided that the ferries would only transport year-round resident travelers, who could make that decision and how would that be enforced? And they answered with, "We will not comment on the hypothetical situation other than to say there would probably be a few legal issues resultant of that decision." So now, one of the things we're looking to do is to answer a few questions as we go along. So we've had a few emailed in questions, and then I will also answer a few questions from the YouTube channel. Please know that in the interest of time, we are going to answer a few questions as they had come in the order they came in. And then I will try to limit a lot of the back and forth as we can. So one of the questions is, without a vaccine, which we understand to be at least 12 months to 1 year away, would COVID continue to infect the population? And without the vaccine, would it continue unabated, especially if people can be infected more than once? Well, that is an excellent question. And yes, the virus will continue throughout the world. It is probably one of those viruses that we will see popping back up every once in a while during the flu and cold season. However, in those same time periods, we would be able to respond in the same way as we respond to flu. Whereas we are, as you will hear the terms, flatten the curve. One of those aspects are to spread out the amount of infections out there in order to not overwhelm the hospital population. So yes, without the vaccine, you will still see it in the population. But if we can control the speed in which it spreads through the population, we would be able to handle that sort of a response. So a question that also was emailed in is, does the hospital, Our Island Home, pharmacies, first responders, and others have sufficient personal protective equipment? So that question came in from Kate. So Kate, that's a great question. And as of right now, we do have a lot of these groups have the personal protective equipment as required. But supplies are dwindling. It is really important to pay attention to rationing. Do not waste masks. Do not hoard masks. Do not hoard gloves. Personal protective equipment is incredibly important when responding to this sort of a case. And as you saw in the hospital statement, yes, it is also an issue. And another question from Kate is, how many people have presented to Nantucket Cottage Hospital asking for COVID-19 tests and have been denied? We don't know the number that has been denied, but we do know that there have been 24 cases as of this morning, 24 swabs that have been sent out to the laboratory for testing. And we are happy to show that so far 8 of those have come back negative, and we're still waiting for response on the others. And I will move over to the YouTube questions. So a question from Dan. Have test results come back from the hospital positive or negative? Well, looks like I just answered that question. Once again, 24 swabs were given. 8 of them did come back negative. We're still waiting on the other 16. With COVID-19 testing off island being approved, this one comes in from Arlene, approved with 2 symptoms. Locally, there are several criteria to be tested. What is the minimum criteria to be tested? Well, the minimum criteria is going to be changing. CDC is trying to get the criteria out as much as they can, as quickly as they can. Mainly, that criteria is fever of 100.4 or more, a dry cough, and known contact with somebody who may have coronavirus or a confirmed contact of coronavirus. But that may be changing as testing ability does get ramped up and is more spread out. Let me see what else I can find here. Thank you for some of these questions. So I'm going to read out questions. Unfortunately, I can't read out all the comments as they come in. So I'm going to try to just stick to the questions. This one comes in from Crystal. Am I correct in saying that current reports say that people are not suffering symptoms but are still testing positive? Crystal, yes. There are such thing as an asymptomatic carrier. What we have been seeing is that some people have the virus. They're not showing any sort of symptoms. Sometimes they don't even know they have it. Yet they can still spread the virus, yet they still are infected with the virus. That has actually been the hardest part of this viral outbreak. When the reason social distancing is so important, the reason we're asking for people to pay attention to the requests that we're putting out. We have put out a building moratorium to stop construction sites from continuing because people may not feel sick, yet still be sick and still be spreading the virus. What's most important to understand about this spread is that it's not about you. It is about the people who you may affect. And if you continue to go out, if people continue to go out and connect in social groups, they continue to meet in large groups and parties and things like that, even at construction sites, they can spread that to another person, to a coworker. And then that person can bring it home to an immunocompromised individual. And that immunocompromised individual is more likely to need hospital care, respirator care, and more likely to overwhelm hospitals. So we really ask that people pay attention to the social distancing aspects. And the follow-up question from Crystal is that I believe that this answer is yes. Well, we do too. What is this one's coming in from Josh. What is the town's plan if this situation goes sideways? Also known as a massive spike in cases and the hospital's running out of supplies and beds. We are in contact with the hospital and we are discussing surge capacity for the hospital. As the hospital has said in their statements, they do have limited beds. So in a situation that we do need to surge, we do have a memorandum of understanding. You'll hear the words MOU, the letters MOU. MOUs are in place to allow for surge capacities and for sheltering in areas such as the school. We are also in conversations to get more beds and medical beds sent to the island, including work with volunteers, people who have the Medical Reserve Corps volunteers in order to respond to this sort of a situation. And then lastly, Kate, thank you very much again. Per Gary, at Wednesday's select board meeting, the hospital is tracking how many people have been denied testing. Please make that number public. So we can definitely ask Gary at the hospital to try to make that number public, but as of right now, I do not have that answer. As of this time for the live broadcast, unfortunately, I don't have that answer for you. But I will reach out to the hospital and see if we can get that information. And has there been a location designated as a quarantine center if need be, assuming it wouldn't be at the hospital and infected, and if we need to be isolated? That came in from Kevin. And Kevin, one of the issues that comes with quarantine is we would only need to quarantine people if they are requiring medical need, somebody who would be admitted to the hospital, and then we would put them in that surge capacity. So we do have the MOU in place that would be able to respond at the school. However, if a person is sick, but their symptoms are manageable, we are asking people to quarantine at home. Shelter in place is a major aspect of this. And then, Catherine, is there a plan to create a MASH unit here in case the hospital becomes overwhelmed? So, as for some of you who may not know, MASH was an old TV show, I believe about the Korean War, which was a field hospital under a tent. We will not be creating a very similar like a MASH unit, but what we are looking to do is we are looking at those surge sites. Right now, the individual surge site we are looking at is at the school, but we are looking at other locations as well. I cannot name them right now because we haven't received signed MOUs yet, but we are looking at creating surge capacity. And I believe that is it as of right now. So I will do a quick move on, and we will move on to what we call the Nantucket Rumor Report. And the rumor report would be is that so far there are the 24 cases, and yes, 8 of them came back negative. But the good news about that information of the 24 swabs that were sent out to the laboratory, I keep calling them cases, but that is my fault. What is really important to understand about that is that none of them have come back positive. So as of right now, there are no positive cases, confirmed cases on the island. And then we also heard a whopper of a rumor yesterday that I received a phone call from a colleague in Brockton that they had heard that the sewer department had come down with COVID-19 based on spread through the sewage. Well, let me explain that. One, no, there are no cases at the sewer department right now. But two, the sewer workers the wastewater workers never actually come into contact with raw sewage. And they also always wear proper PPE in all the work that they do. Infection control is a major part of what wastewater does. And then secondly, that's getting it from a suit from wastewater is also a rough one. But no, there is no way that our wastewater operators have received COVID through any of the raw sewage contacts. It is a very interesting rumor, but it is luckily just a rumor. And with that, we're looking to close off today, and we really appreciate you watching. So thank you for watching, and we will continue to provide you with updates on the coronavirus and impacts for Nantucket. Additionally, Nantucket Community Television wants you to know that Nantucket Pulse will also include shows from our local health practitioners starting next week. It's important that communications remain in place as events continue to unfold. It's crucial to get the facts from your local news sources such as the Enquirer and Mirror, 97.7 AC FM radio, and NCTV Channel 18. Good night, and I am Roberto Santamaria, your Nantucket's Health and Human Services Director. Thank you very much.